Mhm.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this and being on
Yeah.
camera and talking about working with me and working through this program of kinetic divination. If we can jump into some of the questions, is that cool
Yeah.
with you?
Mhm.
What can you share what life was like before working with me before going into this program?
What led me into finding you, contacting you, and doing this was significant trauma. And I was dealing with an eating disorder, severe abdominal pain, and I still don't know if it was based on the eating disorder or something else, like the stress or PTSD symptom or something like that. All I know is that no doctor could figure it out. I had, I think, four internal and external ultrasounds on my uterus to try to figure out why I was in so much pain and like having shakes and sweats random times of the day because of it. And I was having regular panic attacks, could not work. Um, and I had started reading a book by one of my old professors about her rape trauma. And when I finished reading that, I remember she had in it, and at the time I wasn't willing to go to my mom's natural path for help because my mom's like, oh, maybe these pains are digestive, maybe these pains are gut health, whatever it is. So I wasn't willing to do that yet, but what her book said, like the biggest regret is not getting help sooner. And that will be your only regret once you get help is that you didn't do it sooner. There will be no regret with getting help in the first place. So that kind of pushed me, and that's when I started working with a naturopath, which was like she was trying to help me so much. And so it's no she led me on a path to you, which was amazing. But I tried this diet, this like yeast diet, where you drain all the yeast from your body. And there was these pills and stuff that you're on. And what happens is it brings all the toxins out. Maybe I needed this at the time because she muscle tested that I did, but there was no way that I could handle it. And I wish that she had that Katie capability to muscle test if I was available or ready for it. Because yes, my body said we need this, but are we ready for it was a totally different thing because I was already having like pretty suicidal thoughts at the time. I was extremely depressed, very insecure, like binge eating and then having bulimia to cope with it. And so I tried this diet and it gave me a tooth infection, an ear infection, cystic acne overnight. Like everything just went wrong. And I was like, okay, so I am on such a terrible mental level. And now I look like a crazy person. Like I had so many infections in my skin and stuff right away that I was like, this is my breaking point. Like I can fake that I'm doing okay by the way I look, but if you take that away from me, like I have nothing. And so I messaged her and I was like, what's going on? I can't do this. I don't think I can meet you anymore. I'm not mentally well enough to take these steps. And that's when she connected me to you, which was really amazing. I had to have met her in order to have met you. And I remember our first session together. I was in Kingston and I was driving home and I had met my now fiance at the time. I think it was only the third or fourth time like being together and I was going through all that stuff. And so I had to meet you in the car and I was like outside the mall, outside like a Marshall's. And I just like put my seat back and had you coming through the speakers. And I talked to you about like also I had just gotten a standard vehicle and I was like terrified of driving. But before that, I hadn't been, and I had a serious car accident. So that second trauma that I went through really sparked that first reaction. And that's why I was terrified to drive. And so we went over my uterus pain and the panic attacks and the eating disorder and the driving and there was something else. Oh, and like my sexual assault trauma in one session, and it was only an hour. Like it was literally an hour. Maybe we went a little longer because it was like a first session, but that was like the day where my panic attack stopped. I maybe only dealt with like spotty bulimia after that, like very random based on stress, and I hadn't really figured out how to manage it after it had gone away. Um, so yeah, life before it was a shit show. It was really just not going in the right direction. Like I was very suicidal. And every time that I've tried to put been like, oh, I've done the work with Katie, now I'm good. I am good for months and months and months. And then all of a sudden I'll need it again. And it's very obvious. And every time it's gotten longer, and now I just keep it in my life because I learned my lesson that you're supposed to keep up on this stuff. But I also tried psychotherapy around the time that I had met you. And so I had a psychotherapy session, went in, went out, and was like, okay, that was meaningless to me. I didn't connect with the person. None of it felt good. And at the time, I had significant trauma with doctor's appointments and phone calls that I didn't expect. So the only way that I was going to get into therapy and like get help was from like me calling someone, setting up the phone call or expecting it and doing it from a place where I felt safe, which was a huge turning point too, because the like psychotherapy was just kind of more traumatizing because I was like, this is supposed to work. What's wrong with me? And like now I hear that from a lot of my clients that that's a very similar experience. And Katie just never made me feel that way. It was so solution focused and I could fix something, like fix it permanently and walk away and not have to do more work on it. Like I didn't have to journal about it. I didn't have to keep up. It was literally just programmed now into my brain how to think about something, and it doesn't bother me the way that I'm now thinking about it. So that's a super long answer. Super long answer. But yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot to go over.
Well, you brought up some really great points. And I think we did go over a lot of stuff in the first session, but there were some things that I did not know. You didn't tell me.
Right. That's
So
true.
we were working on one thing, but then the kind of snowball effect
Mm-hmm.
of that fix was, the suicidal ideation went
Mm-hmm.
away
Yeah.
from, decreasing the emotional and energetic attachment or reaction to the panic attacks. So
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of because I remember when you wrote your first testimonial or review,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of laid it all out in the review and said, my this went away and this went away and this went away. And I remember going, oh wow, I didn't even know that that was there.
Oh, true. Yeah. Yeah. Because it fixed things that I hadn't told you about for sure.
Yes.
And I didn't even need to, which is the crazy part too, is like, that's what I find people put the most in when I read your testimonies and my testimonies is it's a lot about like that. Oh, I see now what you mean by like, we didn't have to go into the reasons why. We just needed to go into the what's going on. And
And what do you
then,
want?
right. And then shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I think with traditional therapy, we are told to talk it out, journal it out, and talk about the problem. And I
Mm-hmm.
love how you said this is solution
Mm-hmm.
oriented, solution oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say for some people that works. Like the ones that are looking for to, as we call it, like rabbit hole continuously, and that's what they want to pay for. They don't want the solution yet. They just want to focus on this problem, how much it's hurt them, the why it happened, why it came into their life. And I find like they're not even potentially listening because they're not ready to hear it.
Yeah.
And they're not ready to move on to the solution. So I do think there is a space for that therapy and traditional therapy and journaling. And I know a lot of women do it and it goes really well. But then I also know that a lot don't, and they come out and they say there was no, like, I left with more problems than I came with. That is like a classic quote I get from so many girls is, I left with a lot more problems than I knew I had.
Yeah.
And I find with KD, let's say you come in with 10 problems and I tell you about three of them, somehow we fixed all 10.
Yeah.
And then I just move on with my life. Like I literally just move on.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how something can bother you for months and months and months and months. And in an hour, you move on permanently.
Yeah.
You never revisit it.
Yeah. And I think when stuff comes up to the surface, the beauty of KD is you can handle it now that you are familiar and know how to implement the tools.
Right.
Years ago, if I had a memory from my childhood come up, it would wreck me and I'd be out of commission for weeks, if not months, because of that memory. Now it comes up and I go, oh, wow, that did happen. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I can totally eliminate, if there's any emotion attached to it, I can decrease the trigger of that emotion. And in KD, we call it flip it and shift it. Mm-hmm. We flip it on its head and we shift into the alignment of the opposite of it or what we want instead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that made me think of when I was fresh into it, something that you always talked to me about was the toolkit that we're making. And I dismissed how important that was at the time until I would go 2-3 months without seeing you. And then I'd go to you and I'd be like, Jillian, I've done all this work. Why is this happening? Like, why are more bad things coming into my life? I don't get it. And that's when you were like, oh, it's because you're prepared for it now. Like you got to the place where now you can handle this. Now you have this toolbox that we built, and now you get to move on to the next experience. And it might be perceived as bad in the beginning, but what it is a lesson. And it's the one you probably need right before this big, beautiful, amazing next experience is available to you. And that's the strange way that the universe works. But building that toolbox in KD, and now that I see it, and I guess like a lot of it probably has to do with the time in my life that I met you to now, like such big years. And I know KD influenced that. And it also like to see what it can do for someone when they're like young and then moving into like that career lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. Just such formative years for me. And then to have KD in it, it just changed everything.
Amazing. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about then versus now. What is your life like now after learning these tools?
Well, in terms of my like more of the personal stuff with my trauma, I have really moved mountains with like traumatic experiences being an issue for me. They're really not. If anything, they've brought me the best people in my life, the best experiences in my life. I'm like relatable, sensitive, compassionate, and understanding to something that I definitely couldn't have been without KD and without the experience. I see things totally different. And then, so yeah, in terms of like my trauma, I'm proud of it, which is a crazy place to be. And I wouldn't take it back. Like I wouldn't be like, oh, I wish that didn't happen to me. Like I'm happy that it happened in a way, because it's like, there's no way I would have met you. There's no way I would have my career that I have right now doing KD with clients, changing their lives. Like maybe other trauma would have led me there, but it would have had to be trauma. And I think that like the people that go in these paths in life, they do have to go through that kind of stuff first. It's the only way you get that knowledge. And then like professionally, like I went from like wanting all these different careers that were centered around wanting to help people. I knew that that's what I wanted to do, but I couldn't do it in a way that I believed in. Like, I don't believe that psychotherapy worked for me. So it's hard for me to want to go and be a psychotherapist, and go like work in the parameters of psychotherapy when I don't think it worked for me. Like, how do I commit to that and then use it on clients when I don't see that it worked? So using KD and going through this healing system, I'm now able to create something very different even from how you are working with your clients, but I'm still using KD, right? Like and the clients that I'm working with are totally different. Like my focus is different, but using KD has allowed me to go in any direction that I want. And like in my own business experience in those tough moments and those like hard entrepreneurial parts where it's not coming in fast enough and all that kind of stuff, KD is my backup. Like it's literally got my back all the time. If it's that my car breaks down or something happens in my family or something happens with my business, it's just this insane like backup. And it's not going to break. Like if I'm upset about literally anything and I go into alpha and I do the work, that literally takes 3 minutes of your time at the most. And like my sister will call me upset about something and I put her in alpha and we do 3 minutes over the phone and we shift that stuff, we move it. And it's done. And it's also taught me, so something, and I think more of my recent healing experience, and going from like KD and adding some access consciousness and all that kind of stuff has been really cool. But going from, like, is this yours? Questioning, where's the energy coming from? I now understand like the points of views, opinions, beliefs, all that stuff that's, in my life and influencing who I am. And I also like have realized to give less like weight to what someone does believe. Like it doesn't bother me now that people believe things that I don't believe in. I don't even think that their belief is wrong. I just think it is interesting how they came to it with their experiences, right? I'm more interested in their life and how they got there. Instead of like resenting people for their opinions and beliefs and perspectives, which has been the biggest shift in my life now, because I came out of being a philosophy student and a criminal justice student and having these very hardcore set, like women are treated this way and it's not okay, and this opinion's wrong and this opinion's right. And it's really nice to have that like educational background, but there's no way that a paper can know everybody's points of view and the experiences that led them to it. It's impossible for a paper to enclose all that. So now when I hear someone that, would have irked me before or like given me like an intrusive, like, I don't know, just fixation or idea in my head because I hated their opinion, like even with my own parents, I'm like, oh, it makes sense that that's how you feel. It really does make sense. Like those were your experiences. And I'm so not bothered by the fact that other people disagree with me. And usually the newest lesson, I think, is like, just what's the point of sharing if people aren't going to listen? And so now I'm not frustrated when I say something and people don't understand it. I'm like, well, of course you don't understand it. So why am I sharing it? And now I just go, like, interesting. And what can I learn from the fact that this person in their life holds that opinion or belief? And how is that limiting them? And what's that creating for them? And that just makes me better at my work. So the like happiness level, that can go across like all planes, no matter what's going on during the day, is so much better. So much better. And I've definitely like left certain things behind and added certain things to my life. And when I look at them and the structure of them, it all kind of comes back to KD and like what has worked for me, what's created good things for me versus what hasn't. So it's really cool, like how much has changed my life and how now I'm coaching and using it and seeing the effect and the impact that I can have.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, big changes.
Yeah, huge,
Yeah.
huge. Yeah, crazy.
So what has been, we talked a lot about the things that you've accomplished using these tools,
Mm-hmm.
which are astronomical, really.
Mm-hmm.
What has been your favorite part about the program or going from where you were to where you are now? What's been your favorite part of that journey?
Hmm. Um, I think that the favorite part is one of the biggest lessons that I got from it. Because I can think about favorite parts like being able to present essays to universities and feeling really confident. Confidence is definitely one of the biggest things that I've gotten from Katie, which changes your life incredibly. Having confidence is the biggest game changer. But I think a lesson that I learned that definitely I would have to say is my favorite part is the possibilities, like the endless possibilities that you actually have. Um, the perspective that, like, at one point, something wasn't curable to people. Like, they literally thought, like, that's a fact. This is not curable. And then 3 years later, they found a cure for it. And they changed a fact, a known fact, and a scientific fact. Like how people would be like, well, it's a scientific fact that this. It's like, yeah, and it was a scientific fact at one point that we all thought the Earth was flat. So the possibilities Katie's shown me when I choose to think the right way about things, or and yeah, like I literally mean the right way, because I do think there's a wrong way to think about things. And so Katie showing me the way I can shift out of other people's energy and into my own, and really think about things in a way that works for me and respect like that part of me, like the organicness of it. I think that's going to be the biggest lesson and the thing that's changed my life the most, because it's made me really myself. Like, I am nobody but myself. I'm like undeniably myself all the time. Nobody and nothing can make me act or be a way that I don't want to be, or a person I don't want to be. Like, I'm truly in who I am, and having that kind of integrity to myself makes me trust myself, trust my decisions. That's where my confidence comes from, right? Like, I know that I can do it. And I think that's what that was the biggest thing. And I don't think that I would have gotten that from any experience in life or anything, because I see people that are very successful and they don't have confidence. So I truly like have to look at it as like, okay, so I'm on the rise of success and this is what I want, but what do I have that even successful people don't? Like, where am I rich? And it's confidence, 100%, knowing that, like, put me in any situation, I can handle it. I'll get through it.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. It's looking at where you have that richness in your life that you can share with other people. And in that gift of giving and sharing, that's where you exponentialize the riches in your life. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you went through a lot, and I know that when we started working together, you were at a point where give me the solution.
Yeah.
What, with so many people online, with so many options available now, and yourself, you've now gone through the KD system, and then you went through learning it to be a KD practitioner facilitator. What do you think it was at the time that made you trust me enough to work with me and implement these tools?
Hmm. Well, I remember one of the first things you said to me when I told you something very difficult for me to tell you, and you had a similar experience. And the way that it's about you, Jillian, it's literally the way that you go about it. Um, I just felt like you have these like mother figures in your life. And at the time I really needed one that I could tell anything to and it wouldn't hurt her. It wouldn't break her heart. And that was like the energy that you had was like I could literally tell you anything and you would get me through it and you would never be disappointed in me. And and so I think people get that from therapists, but not on the level that I got it because it was literally like the first day. And I think you like explained to me that none of it is my fault. And and I know someone else could have said that, but the way that you held a energetic space to be like, you can fall apart in this space, you because there's this like security in the space that you're not going to leave me in that place. And that is not just KD, but that's you as a practitioner, as a facilitator of KD. We have been on a call for 3 hours before, right? Because I have just rabbit holed my way into 3 hours and I can't believe how frustrated you must be sometimes. Oh my God, how bad it's been. Holy. But like you still held the space and then I still felt better after and I like moved on. And that's where it like I didn't get that from anybody else. Everybody was too busy. Like and I don't blame anyone for that. Like my parents have their lives. My mom has to get us groceries. She has to do these things. And so if she can't hear me for 3 hours, then that is what it is. But there was just this like energetic, like motherly space that you held for me. And it was so important to me because there were no like consequences. It was only going to get better. And I never once felt like, even when I was frustrated on a call, because that you said something I didn't want to hear, I would tell you, or it was obvious. And so then you just take another approach. Like, okay, that approach didn't work for Leah. So how do I get this across in a way that does work for her instead of repeating the thing that I'm clearly rejecting or showing me why I'm rejecting it? Like there was just such a like such a smart way of going about. And I think the biggest thing is because you listened, right? Like most people don't listen. They have their own shit going on. So when they hear something, it makes them like pull back energetically and they will throw some energy at you that they don't want anymore. And to have, and like therapists do it, like you can tell a therapist something and they feel in over their head and they throw that energy back at you to be like, oh, maybe this girl's too much. I didn't want that. Like I couldn't have handled that. And so that was the thing. It's just like there was an insane amount of trust that you could handle anything I was going to say and that we were going to get through it. And there was no rush. And I just felt better after every shift. And sometimes I would start crying after a shift because it was taking me into the next shift. Like that, finally the shame went away. So now we're exposing the guilt. And then we're going to work on that. And it was just, I don't know, it's just such a beautiful way of going about emotions. And yeah. And yeah, I think I could have done KD with someone else, but it wouldn't have been the same because I think the universe worked in a way that put us together. And that was the crazy part for me, even now looking back, like that when was that? It was in the summer going into my third year and I graduated in 2020. So 2019 or 2018. we started, yeah, so like 4 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Mhm.
Well, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful that you've shared all of these experiences. I'm so glad that the universe threw us together. And thank you so much. I was getting teary and crying a little bit there because that was so beautiful to just remember the journey that we've been on together, but also the journey that you've just thrown yourself into. And it was, you said sometimes you need that trauma to be at the place where you can help other people,
Mhm.
and you just have this depth of knowledge from the experiences that you've had and the training that you've had. But I appreciate you and I thank you. Are there any closing words that you want to leave for anybody listening to this?
Um, yeah, for sure. I think that Katie is like coming up in the world, and I think that like the more people we share it with, the more people will be amazed. I think any energy work is incredible, but KD is something special. And I think that the if you haven't heard the words yet that got me into it, that whatever it is you need help with, the biggest regret you will have is not getting help soon enough. If that's what you need to hear, then you just heard it. Like, do it. It will change your life. It's worth the investment to like you will create money from this. You cannot create money from being extremely depressed, or it won't make a difference once you have it. Like, congratulations, you have all this money, you're still depressed. Like, I would rather be in significant debt and happy and shifting out of trauma and into creating my career, creating the career that I want, than being in a career that's making me a bunch of money and I'm miserable. So I think that people really need to prioritize how they feel, um, and not the material things like money. It comes and goes. It's just an energetic exchange. It's not, to me, it's not even real. So yeah. I think that that's powerful. I think that people just need to take the chance and just take the risk. You're not going to be disappointed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Yeah.
you.